ask yourself this. Do I have a vision for where I'm going? Do I have a belief in what I'm doing? And then, what is my character? What the fuck is leadership? Out of everything that I've studied in self-improvement, a little stuffy today, but that's no different than any other day, I guess. One of the things that is probably the most contradictory as far as information goes is leadership. There have been so many books written on leaderships. It's absolutely unbelievable. And a lot of them contradict each other. Like, it's crazy. When I was thinking about doing this podcast on leadership, I started just nosing around a little bit through some of the books that I've read, which I already knew. I just wanted to remember, like, did I remember that right? I've always felt that it's very contradictory. Like, you could study one great business person in leadership and you find out that they were a loving and warm, caring guy or gal, and they treated their people really well, and they held people accountable. They had amazing success. Everybody loves them. And then you find out that you study another person and they were a complete dick. They were a complete dick to their people, but they changed the world in what it was that they were doing. And you might say, well, they were a terrible leader. Well, I can make an argument against that. Just because a person's a dick and they don't treat people well does not necessarily mean that they're not a good leader. I suppose you could break it down to what is your definition of leadership, but here's the truth. A person could be a great leader and people don't like them, and a person could be a great leader and people love them, and everywhere in between. So I wanted to bring something that I thought would be a little different, other than all the leadership cliches that have been done a million times out there in books, and give a person another way to think about this. And here's one of the reasons why, totally transparent. When I first started studying leadership, like, it wasn't a complete deep dive into leadership, but I guess it went along with the rest of my studies. I was thinking to myself, I don't have the qualities of these great leaders. I need to develop these qualities or whatever. And then, I really wasn't sweating over it, and I knew I could develop any quality that I wanted. But it did stick out in my mind. But then I heard somebody say that to be a great leader, one needs to be a great follower first, and then always know which role to be in. So it's fluid. So they could be a great follower, and they could also be a great leader. Let's substitute the word following for disciple. All disciple means is a student of, okay? That's all it means. So I started looking at the great leaders throughout history, people that had really affected global change. And I looked at both sides of the camp, by the way. I looked at the great ones that did good, and I looked at the great ones that did horrible atrocities in the world. And I started coming from, okay, let's apply the law of polarity to this, because what I'm looking for is the truth in leadership. I'm not necessarily looking for looking at leadership and then saying, oh, well, this person was studious and they were willing to do everything that they told their people to do. They would do it themselves, or they led from the front, or they led from the rear, or they had the ability to inspire, or they had the ability to love. Wasn't looking for any of that stuff. I'm like, what? Let's take this kind of like from the spiritual, the universal, and break it down to the actual physical, and what is it that we're actually looking at here. So there were two main things that I noticed in the great leaders that did good and the great leaders that did bad. One was that they had a vision for what they wanted. And the vision, even if it wasn't communicated in a way where they said that this was a vision from God or this was a spiritual vision, although some did, It was a vision of a higher power or a higher calling. So that's the first thing. And I think it's very, very important. The second one was 100% belief in the vision and that it could be done. So if I was you, I'd write those two things down. So you're writing them down. It is vision and 100% belief in the vision that it can be done. Now, let's take a look at this. I really believe that every single person, all 7.5 billion of us, have a purpose. What separates us from nature is that all of nature, everything in nature, has a purpose, but it's not consciously aware of what its purpose is. So its purpose is very much kind of boiled down to how it lives its life, how this piece of nature lives its life. What does it take in from the universe, and what does it give back to the universe? In the actual event of living itself, okay? So if you look at a honeybee, for instance, a honeybee is going to go out and it's going to collect pollen off all these different flowers. In the act of collecting the pollen, which it's then going to take back, okay? It's going to take back to its hive for food, turn it into honey. In the act of doing that, it pollinates all these other flowers, which allows the flowers to then grow. And the more flowers, then the more bees, right? So the more bees, the more flowers. They're interacting. They're helping each other grow. But it's not the purpose of the flower to go find a bee. The purpose of the flower is to just be attractive and to give off whatever it gives off so that the bee can find it. The purpose of the bee is to feed its honey, or to feed its hive. In working for itself to feed the hive, it pollinates all the flowers. And I can go on and on like this with all of nature. One nature, in the essence of its living, affects other pieces of nature. And all together, we call that, the nature of Earth, and that's how the Earth thrives. Human beings, we also have the physical need for survival, all the things that we need to do to have food and shelter and clothing. When we were just reduced to food and shelter and clothing, there was not a whole lot of expansion in the world from the aspect of human beings. And part of the reason for this is that mostly we did everything ourselves. It was only when we started doing things for other people to benefit them so that it would benefit us did society begin to expand. That idea of intentionally or consciously working to do something for someone else so that we could do more for ourselves, that is a conscious thought. That is a very big difference. That is a conscious thought. That is saying, I'm going to intentionally do something for another person that will help them so that they give me something that will help me. Very different. Now, let's think about this. So part of the question that comes in is, well, where did this idea come from? The idea of doing something more than just helping ourselves. The truth is, we really don't know. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what the first thoughts of actually consciously helping another human being came from. But here's kind of what we do know. We do know that in every way that we've done that, especially with making things, taking things with our hand and our mind, and taking objects that are all over the earth, and then doing something with them to create other objects. Like I'm sitting here at this beautiful wood table that once was a tree, okay? So we took the tree, they sawed it, they cut it, they fit it together, they nailed it together, they glued it together, they varnished it, and they made this great table. That idea of a table had to be an image in someone's mind first. Everything that we see that formed by human hands had to be an image in somebody's mind first. It had to be an idea. It's very interesting that we have this creative faculty in our intellect that allows us to imagine things that we may not have in the physical world, but we can see a picture of it in our mind, and then we can do what's necessary with our hands and our mind to form it into a physical object. So we take things from the non-physical and we make them into the physical. That is under the law called the perpetual transmutation of energy, taking things from a non-form, making them into a form, and then when they die or disintegrate or rot away, they go back to a non-form again. The conclusion that we've come to around this is that the uniqueness in which people do this is aligned with what we call our purpose, meaning that not everybody has the same desire to create something. We all want something different in our life, and it's unique to our own wants and our desires. But everything that we want benefits other people. It may not benefit everybody, but in essence, in kind of a way, it does. Because even if I directly benefit a group of people based on whatever my skill set or my talent is, that allows them to thrive more so that they can benefit other people, and those people can benefit other people, and those people can benefit other people. So it actually does expand in a way that is non-direct to the person that we're actually, the people that go beyond the person that we're actually benefiting. However, there's something very disturbing that happens also with the human race. Many, many, many people, probably the majority of people on the planet, do not follow their own uniqueness to the full possibility of what they could, or even approaching the full possibility of what they could. What happens is that for the majority of their childhood, people are programming their mind with what they think they're supposed to do, how they should live their life, what's an appropriate way for them to live their life. They follow this information, the individual follows this information, and all they do is replicate it in their life. Never asking themselves the question, what would I really love to do? What is it that's unique about me that can bring something magnificent to my life in the enjoyment of that, the fulfillment of that, and then benefit the lives of others? And then begin to go out and actually search for it, seek it, try things to figure out what that is. The people that do, though, what they really are doing is they're following an internal guidance. Now, you can call that God, you can call that the universe, you can call that spirit, you could call that master intelligence, you could call that the architect of the universe. I don't care what you call it. But there is an acknowledgement that there's this higher intuition, this higher knowledge that is inside of us, that is pulling us to go in one direction or another. The moment that we recognize that, we become a disciple. We become a student of our own higher thought. Now, what's happening? It really becomes voluntary leadership and voluntary following of that leadership. So the idea, the thought, the desire, the purpose, whatever that might be, it's leading us in a direction. We are pleased with the idea, the thought, the desire, and we're following it. As we follow it, our life gets better. It puts us through the whole process of an idea, and then taking that idea and figuring out, what do we have to do? Who do I need to become to make that idea a reality? and we go through struggle, and we go through overcoming fear, and we go through overcoming insecurities, and we become more of who we truly are in our overall power with the divine. And then we create and we help other people. We get feedback. Are we doing a good job? Are we not doing a good job? We make corrections, and we get better, and we get better, and we get better. At some point in us being a good student, we do something that is very interesting. As we're following our vision, we become attractive to people who want to follow a vision. They're either in harmony with our vision, or they're in harmony with the vision of their life, and they see our vision as a means to helping them with their vision. And collectively, we start bringing these people into our life, and as long as we hold that vision and we're moving toward it, other people start to follow that direction. Many of them will want to be part of your vision. Many of them will want to be inspired by your vision so that they can fulfill their own vision. What's happening? The transformation here is allowing us to step into our own leadership. Now, there's conscious leadership and there's unconscious leadership. There's many people here's another thing. Everybody, in some way or another, is leading somebody else, in the sense that people are watching you and it affects their behavior. So never think that nobody's paying any attention, because that's absolutely not true. We can be leaders on many, many different levels. But for the sake of this podcast and this lesson, let's think about conscious leadership versus unconscious leadership. Conscious leadership is where I know what I want, I know where I'm going, I know why I want it, and this I will do. Again, I've got the vision and I've got the belief. And if I have those two things, I instantly become a leader, not only in my own life, but for the lives of other people. Now, yes, we could go down the road of, well, what are all the qualities of the person that leads? Here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that you forget those. Like, get that out of your mind. Because basically, what that does is it tells you how to become something that you might not be. Ask yourself this: do I have a vision for where I'm going? Do I have a belief in what I'm doing? And then, what is my character as a person? My character, not what somebody else's character is, not what they think I should be. What is my character? Do I like my character? If I don't like my character, what character traits do I observe in other people that are attractive to me? And then start being those character traits. So you can study it from that perspective, because I think that's here's the thing. Anytime that you find something attractive in another person, kind of like when you start to feel envious of the way another person's being or something that they're doing, the reason is because part of you is in harmony with that. It means that maybe in a rudimentary sense, that character trait is in you, but it's a little dormant and it needs to be brought to the surface. We all want to very easily watch somebody else and then say, oh, I'm going to do what that person's doing, without really asking or even knowing, is that authentic to who I am? So here's the third piece. First was vision. Second was belief. Third is authenticity. Authenticity. That's the triad. That is the leadership triad. Do I have a vision? Do I believe it? And am I authentic? If I can step into and uncover my authenticity, everything that I need to be a proper leader for where I'm going and what it is that I'm going to create is already in me, and it begins to come to the surface. Now, don't let your mind go down the road of like, yeah, but I'm an asshole, or yeah, but I really care about people. Here's the thing. Ask yourself authentically who you are. Because if we're dealing with character traits, and let's say you are being an asshole, ask yourself, is that authentically who you really are? Chances are it's not. Asshole is something that you became to protect yourself from certain things in life, but it's not really who you are. So if we become authentic, we do something that is really pretty magical in the world. Once we accept our authenticity, we no longer care what other people think about us. And that is extraordinarily important in being a leader. Because remember, you have a vision. God didn't give that vision to somebody else. He gave that vision to you. That makes you unique. The belief around it is sometimes difficult to explain for a lot of people. They don't know why they believe it. And if you think about a lot of things that were created throughout history, before there was any real example of the things that were being created, like I like to reference Edison with the light bulb, we didn't have any light bulbs before that. We had gas lamps, and we had oil lamps, and we had candles, but we didn't have an electric light. So he believed that he could do it, so much so that, as far as I know, the story's true, 10,000 attempts to create that light bulb before he got it right, with a whole room of engineers and scientists helping him work on actually creating this. He had that vision. He had the belief that it could be done. He was being authentic in who he was as a person, and he obviously didn't care what other people thought, because a lot of people thought that he had lost his mind. Before the radio, before the phonograph, before the ability to take pictures or movies, all of those things were looked at as witchcraft. They were looked at as like they were satanic. They were evil in some way, because the people that had the vision of creating those things were the first ones. Everybody else thought it was some kind of magic, or there was superstition around it. And a lot of times they thought they were crazy. There were many people that were taken off in the white coats and put in asylums someplace because they had visions that were so outside of the norm that it was very difficult for other people to believe it. And even though we do have some of this today, it was really bad back then, where if you were going to do something that nobody else believed, they thought you were crazy. So they would just lock you up. Vision. God's giving you a vision. Your responsibility is to follow it. In the following, it increases your belief. As your belief increases, you start to become a leader. Then it's authenticity. It is really asking yourself, who am I? And following what that is. And then the whole key that makes all of those things come together is not caring with what other people think. But what happens is that the vision becomes the boss. You become subservient to the vision. The vision becomes the leader. When you do that, you become unique in what it is that you want to create in your life. There are other people on the planet whose purpose is to help you create that vision. I don't know who they are, but here's what I do know. When you step into those four things, you instantly become attractive to those people, because they want to accomplish things also. They have things that they're good at. They have a vision for themselves. And part of them completing that vision is finding somebody who has the bigger component of the vision and working with that individual so that they create a vision collectively. The people are already here. If we approach leadership from the idea of, I have to go out and get and find all these people that will work for me or work with me or follow me or whatever, we're going to have a very difficult time actually accomplishing that, because we're not coming from the truth that is locked up in this idea. And that is, if I follow the vision, other people have to be here. That's part of the law, right? Everything has to be here to accomplish the vision, or you wouldn't have the vision. Everything is here for you to accomplish the vision, or you wouldn't have the vision. You get the vision intellectually, emotionally, and through action. You develop a solid belief in that vision. You become completely authentic in who you are because the authenticity of who you are keeps you an open channel to everything that you need to accomplish that vision. And then you release the bondage of other people, what they say, what they think about who you are and what you're doing. And you literally don't care. You're not stumped or feel deflated by other people's thoughts. When you do that, you become a true leader. You will never find anybody throughout history that was a true leader that did not have those 4 qualities. And here's the other thing. Those are 4 qualities that do not need to be installed into you. They're already there. It is the natural state of all of life moving forward in order to create more life, both in your life and in the lives of others. Go out and be a leader.
If you like this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe, leave a comment or question below, and let's continue that conversation.